Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pilgrims on the Digital Way. My name is Matt, aka Uncle Traveling Matt, and today with me, as always, is.
I'm Mary Michelle, and that's great to be here. Hi, everyone.
Hi. So today, let's have a think. We've got another question for today, but before we do, we normally have a look at comments from last week's video, which was
Yeah.
what was it about? Was it about choosing which Camino?
Yes. Well, I was choosing a pilgrimage,
Choosing.
but yeah, there are several options. The Camino itself has many options, is what we ended up talking about.
Yeah. So actually, we didn't have any comments on the video this time, but I did have
Okay.
one in one of the Facebook groups, and it wasn't so much a question; it was more a comment, and it said, "You don't choose the pilgrimage chooses you." So
Oh.
that's one way of looking at it.
Well, I'm sure that that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure there are a lot of people who would agree with that. Some would, some wouldn't. I think it probably depends on an individual, why they're choosing to be on a pilgrimage. It does seem to actually, I certainly people do talk about a sense of destiny and of fate when that I've read
Yeah.
when they get themselves out onto that road and on the
Yeah.
way. So
I mean, if I could give
there's
something from
probably truth to that.
my own life, so the last pilgrimage that I did was the way of St. Francis, or part of that. And it kind of culminated because I did the first bit, and it kind of culminated at a place called Santuaria della Verna. So Mount Verna, which is where St. Francis received his stigmata. But actually, a lot of my thoughts on it were all about a figure called Al Hidra, who he appears in the Quran, but he's actually pre-Islamic. He dates all the way back to Babylonian times and stuff. And some say he's the same as Saint George, and he comes to travelers. And I was thinking a lot about him. Because I believe I had an encounter with him a year before when I was in Cyprus. But interestingly, I was reading this book about him, and it says that the one place where he came, the one Christian figure that he's meant to have come to was Saint Francis, and he came to him on Mount Verna. And so, and that I literally read
So
like,
they had an encounter.
yeah, and I read that the day after I'd gone to Mount Verna, and I'd had this experience on Mount Verna as if that was where I was meant to be going. That was the goal of my
Wow.
pilgrimage, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, now I get why." So maybe the pilgrimage does choose you,
Well,
but
that's certainly a very powerful testimonial for a yes.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. A skeptic might say it's coincidence, but I don't think so. So
Well,
anyway,
I don't know. Was it coincidence when I arrived at the back gate yesterday with a heavy load and the gate opens towards me, so I couldn't open it, which made me laugh because normally everyone leaves that gate open and it was actually closed when they needed it to be open. And then all of a sudden, this big rush of wind just blew it open right before me. I didn't even have to. I didn't even have to break my step. And I laughed and I said, "Uh-huh. Are we playing games or is it
okay.
a coincidence?"
So we haven't had so yeah, thanks for the comment by the way about the pilgrimage chooses you.
Yeah,
Um
that's great.
yeah, so we that's what we've had from last week. In the meantime, what I will say is I've published a couple of videos. One is in my
Yes,
other series, which
tell us about that, Matt.
yeah, Pilgrim Place of the British Isles, because the
Yeah,
weather's
yeah.
great. So
Oh,
I've been
Matt.
going about. And I've published one on St. Trilo's Chapel in Rows-on-Sea. So it's the smallest church in Britain, founded by a 6th century hermit from Brittany. So yeah, that one you might want to check out. But also in this series, I've done a bonus video. And this one I'm really quite excited about. It was with a couple that I met online through the
Yes.
Camino message boards. and their their names are Golan and Yael. They're Israelis, and basically, Golan walked the Camino de Santiago, had a very powerful experience, walked it again, wrote a book, and then with Yael walked the Via Francigena to Rome, and then they wondered, like they said, you know, the ancient Christian pilgrimages were Santiago, Rome, and Jerusalem. Why isn't there a pilgrimage road to Jerusalem? And so what they've done is they've worked with an academic in an Israeli university. They've traced the original route as much as they can, and they are re-establishing the way to Jerusalem.
That's so exciting. Overland through Europe. And
well, there is an overland route, but nobody can do it because of Syria. So this is the route where the pilgrims from Europe would have sailed to Jaffa, now Yaffo in Israel, and then they would have walked to Jerusalem from the coast.
Of course, of
So,
course. How wonderful.
There are other ones as well, but that's the one.
Amazing. Well, you see that, and this bears out. Wow, so that was just literally one individual, is what you're telling us, who had this inspiration, literally inspire, to do that. Goodness, that's it. And you know what? And I want to say, Matt, I was reading that there's something called, is it the British Pilgrimage Trust?
Yes.
So yeah, and they kind of have a lot of routes and itineraries and maps and so on. So, and I was reading on there that in the UK, I guess it's in the UK, because it's the British Pilgrimage Trust, so I guess it's the British Isles. 600 sacred sites that they list, 600, and something like 40 plus actual pilgrimage routes, like the ones that you talked about. Now, you said the Cotswold Way, and just so you know, everybody, this is actually leading up to our question for today. You said that Cotswold Way wasn't actually an ancient pilgrimage, is that right?
No, it's more a secular way through a pretty area, pretty part of the country.
Apparently there are 40-something, and they're not all necessarily, I don't know if they're all necessarily Christian. We talked about this, you and I, before we started the video, Matt, that some of the sites can actually be Neolithic, and that you were talking, we won't get off on a tangent here, but there are holy wells, there are places like that, you know, that people consider sacred. So anyway, I just thought it was so interesting that there are really so many pilgrimage sites.
Well, there are, and I have contacted the British Pilgrimage Trust anyway, and who knows, maybe they will come and do a bonus video for us someday. I hope so.
Wonderful.
I have also been in touch with a gentleman from the Northumbria community, which is a Celtic Christian community. They own a retreat up Lindisfarne, and I'm hoping we can do something with them. So let's see. You know,
that's fantastic, Matt.
It says in the Bible, you scatter seed, and some falls on stony ground, some falls on fertile ground.
Wonderful.
Okay, Mary Michelle, what is the question for today?
Okay. Well, it's a big one, Matt.
Okay.
Well, I think so. Are you ready? So how to prepare for a pilgrimage, how to prepare for your pilgrimage. What are your recommendations, Matt?
My recommendations for preparing for a pilgrimage is that you don't need to prepare at all. You just need to go. So thank you for watching the video. That was really nice. And I'll see you again next week.
That's it? No. You can't just, what did you say? Don't prepare, just go?
Don't prepare, just go. Okay, I was being.
That's it, really?
No, I was joking a bit, but in another way, I'm serious, because actually, I think a lot of people, like, you know, when I talked about fears before, a lot of people they overthink the preparations. And actually, so if I talk about Camino de Santiago, the Camino Frances, right, it's the popular one. So let's start there. Right, you don't need to pack. You don't need to prepare anything. Like, honest to God, you don't need to. Book your flights and go.
There are so many videos and lists and comments.
Ignore them.
Endless discussion about what to bring and how much.
But
And
you don't, because literally I could go there just in this t-shirt and shorts and get on the plane and get off there, because number one, you could buy everything there. Like literally,
sure.
it's the busiest hiking route in the world. They've got stuff for hikers, they've got
Okay,
pharmacies all the way along. Like they're prepared for this. So
I
and
see.
and the
So you're not going to the
accommodation,
Himalayas, is what you're saying.
yeah, you're not planning for this mad trek, and for me the great thing with the Camino Frances is that very much you don't need to prepare, so you can just
Sure.
go, you don't need to think
So
about it. And
okay. Okay. Well, what about this? Can I interrupt you for a
go on.
sec? So you're saying, okay, just be very free spirited about it, is what you're saying. However, I think the reason that people, and I haven't done this yet, so, but I've read, I've looked at thousands of pictures and so on. So I think why people do this level of preparation, at least this is my impression, is the need because of the physical challenge, because it's so grueling physically. You have to have this checklist where you have this many pants to stay dry and this many socks. And so are you kind of
I mean,
throwing that all out the window,
I
Matt?
am totally throwing that out the window, and
Okay.
I'll tell you why.
Do tell.
If you could see the rest of my body from here, you will see that I am not someone who's designed for hiking. And when
Okay,
I
thank you.
started walking Camino, I was a lot less physically fit than I am now. I read a book, and I'll put the link because it's the best Camino book I've read. And it was comes like Overweight, Unprepared, and on Camino, or something like that. It's by an Irish fella.
Yeah.
And literally, you have morbidly obese people who do it, right? People, I didn't do
Sure.
any physical
Yeah.
preparation.
So
Yes, it's harder. It's much harder. But the thing is, you don't have to walk those 20-30 kilometer days. You can do 10-kilometer days.
yeah,
That's the
which is
point.
I would
You do, your body will tell you when you've had enough. Like, and if your limit is 5 kilometers, it's 5 kilometers. Like,
yeah, right.
literally, for some people, that's a struggle. For some people, they can do 40 without thinking.
Okay.
What you need to do, and I'm quite passionate about this, is don't
Yes,
look
I
at
can
other
tell. This
people.
is great, Matt.
Know thyself. Know your own self, and don't be ashamed that you can't walk as fast or as far as the next man or woman.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is, like that's, and as for stuff, like I remember
Yeah.
there's a
Through your own journey, right?
when I walked Camino Frances, there was an American lady, and she was a lovely, lovely lady, but she had this enormous backpack, and her husband, both of them. And once she fell over, she fell down into a ravine, and we helped to get it out, and it was the weight of the backpack.
Oh my
And
goodness. No, that's
when we looked
terrible.
in the backpack, I think what she'd packed was all her fears. There was literally a
Wow,
medicine for
that's such a great comment, Matt.
every ailment, a medicine for every ailment. There was something for every eventuality, except it was weighing her down. And
Well, it pulled her
I
over for
remember
goodness sake.
John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, which is a very
Yeah.
famous. I mean, I know it's metaphorical; it's not an actual pilgrimage, but with that, Pilgrim, who's the main character, has a weight of sin on his back, and in the
Mhm.
end, he throws it off,
Oh, I've forgotten about this. Okay.
but like in a way, I thought it wasn't her sin, but it was her fears. Her fears were weighing her
Sure.
down and actually
Well,
caused her to stumble and fall.
right.
And it was sad that, because she didn't need all that stuff. And if she did get that headache or that thing, there's a shop that can sell it to you on the way. And
Yeah.
we're not going to like Chad or Togo or Papua New Guinea.
Well,
We're
and
in
wonder
Spain.
if are we that, that gives me a sense, and I don't want to be critical or anything. And I trust me, Matt, I like my creature comforts. I don't know if I'm ready to give up my pillow and my mattress and a few other things. But anyway, that's another discussion. Um, so, you know, maybe we've become so mollycoddled that we can't wait a few hours for the pharmacy to open, or we can't
Yeah.
walk a little farther till there's somebody with a bandage, or
I mean, I think
is that like almost having your cocoon with you for
yeah.
every possible
I mean,
eventuality?
that said, I think some
I
people
mean, is
have
that being really mean? I think that's being really mean.
some people have medical conditions and they need,
Right? Well,
so
no, aside
one
from
thing
that,
is,
obviously, we're not talking
get your
about
like
that.
medication so that you've got enough for the whole stretch,
Yeah, well, that's
that
not the same
yeah.
at all.
And
Yeah,
that is, but even that, I went to Serbia last year, not a pilgrimage, just traveling,
yeah.
and the bags went missing on the plane, and my medication was in the plane. So I went to a pharmacy in Belgrade, and I just said, "Look, I haven't got my medication. I need it." We phoned the doctor in England, and they gave me over the counter the medication that I needed. It was prescribed.
Wow.
So even in that worst
Hey,
case
there.
scenario, it it can happen. Um, so I just think
Okay. So
you
you're
need your
saying don't
flight,
over prepare. Yeah.
and I think on some pilgrimages you need to book accommodation ahead. Now, not on the Camino, and I booked it ahead on
Another whole
the way of St.
pillar of
Francis, and I probably
experience.
didn't need to do it. All
Yeah.
the other pilgrims were booking there the day before,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just think we overthink stuff. We overthink.
Sure.
I think and if you're saying, well, I need to get in shape, is that no, you don't. That's an excuse for you not going now.
Yeah, that was actually part of the question. That a lot of people say you should get out and go on long walks before you go and get some toning and training under your belt.
Look, if you're walking every day for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, however long you go for, you will get toned. Like like you will get fit on the way. Now, of
Yeah.
course, it will help. I mean, one year
Yeah.
I climbed a
Okay.
mountain in Wales before, and it was hell, but it helped me on the Camino. I mean, it was good. That doesn't do me any harm, but I didn't need to do it. That's the point. And if that's what's
Okay.
holding you back, forget it. Go.
Okay. All right. Well, Matt, I guess that about covers it
Well,
in a
yeah,
very succinct way, just go, which is so interesting because I always think about, you and I often talk about imagining ourselves back in another time. And I think about the people when they were preparing to leave for a pilgrimage from their home hundreds of years ago. And, they would literally leave from their home and with just a very few possessions, I'm
yeah.
sure, and go into the town center where everybody's sort of gathering and the church bells are ringing and there's a group of people and there are wagons and horses and there's a party feeling and they're setting off on their pilgrimage, but they're literally leaving from home
Mhm.
and they
Well,
don't have a lot of
can,
money.
can
they
I
you know
say they
they're
didn't?
gonna have to go to those the hospitalier to be fed and
Yeah.
have someone sleep and they're not taking anything. So
Can I say a couple of things about that? I mean, then we will finish off. But I went to a very interesting exhibit, I especially say, at Worcester Cathedral in England. They found a grave of a pilgrim, and he'd been
yeah,
to Canterbury. I think he'd been to Rome and Santiago, and so there's a bit of an exhibition on pilgrimage. And they didn't prepare all the stuff that we prepare, but what they did do was set their financial affairs in order because they half expected to die on the way. And I
you know
think
what, I was
very
gonna
few of
say
us
that,
think
Matt.
that. But
They
when
also, I was going to say that because they had actually no idea if they would ever make it back
yeah,
alive. And a lot of them didn't. And it took years
yes.
sometimes.
And the thing is, one of the
Right.
most thought-provoking things, and I will leave it on this, is when you go on Camino, every so often you find a cross of a pilgrim that's died on the way, and it makes you
Well, you know what? It happens. I mean, it's not on the news, but it absolutely happens
yeah.
every day. And there are people, and God bless them, may their God bless them, who are on the way because it's the end essentially, and this is their what the kind of one of the last things that they want to do. So there are many stories, there are many stories as there are people. Um, the great movie, The Way,
Yeah.
Martin Sheen's movie, is based on
Yeah.
exactly that kind of an event. So, or the
And,
whole thing starts there, shall we say.
yeah.
It's not about that, but that's what gets the story going, which is so beautiful, actually.
And
All right.
on that
Well,
uplifting note, shall we go?
on that what note?
Uplifting note, shall we?
Uplifting. Well, it's not okay.
But listen, no, seriously, summing up, don't
Yes,
overthink,
sum it up.
just go. Really, just don't overthink, just go. Get yourself your flights, don't think about the other stuff, do it. You will be fine. You will
Oh
be fine.
yeah, and as Matt says, don't be afraid.
Okay. This, this is Uncle Traveling Matt saying, keep traveling and stay on the path.
Love that. Thanks. Thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks, everyone.